They insult you. They ignore you. They raise their voices, roll their eyes, laugh behind your back. They push your buttons with perfect precision, and then act like you're overreacting. And you explode. Again. You raise your voice, your hands tremble, your chest tightens, your peace is shattered. And once again, you're left asking yourself, why do I always let them get to me? But what if you didn't? What if no one could shake you anymore? What if the worst people said about you no longer matter? What if the storms around you could rage, but inside, you remain still, quiet, whole? That's not a fantasy. That's not the cold indifference of someone who doesn't care. That's something deeper. That's true control. That's what the Stoics, people like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, practiced every single day. Not because it was easy, but because they understood one truth: you cannot control others, but you can always control yourself. And if you master that, nothing can bother you again. Let's begin with a hard truth. Most people believe anger is a natural response. That when someone disrespects you, you're supposed to get angry. That if someone lies to you, cuts you off in traffic, betrays you, your reaction is valid. Anyone would react like that, they say. But the Stoics asked, why should I let someone else have that much power over my peace? If someone can make you angry, they control you. Not physically, but mentally. They reach into your chest, twist your emotions, and pull you out of your center. And you let them. Epictetus said it clearly: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Think about that. They didn't actually make you angry. They only presented a stimulus. The anger, that was yours. The fire, it was already inside you. They just lit the match. Now imagine this. You're walking down the street. A stranger bumps into you without apologizing. You turn and stare. He looks back, eyes challenging. He mutters something under his breath. You feel it, that heat rising in your chest. That familiar tightness in your jaw. You want to say something. You want to prove something. You want to win. But in that exact moment, you lose. Not because he was right. Not because he was stronger. But because you handed over your serenity. You gave a stranger permission to steal your peace. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men in history, faced insults, betrayals, and cruelty every day. And yet he wrote in his private journal, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. That's the secret. You have a choice. Always. You can let the outside world invade your mind, or you can build a wall, a calm, clear wall, between what happens and how you respond. And this isn't about pretending. This isn't about bottling things up or walking away like a coward. It's about owning yourself. It's about having such a strong foundation inside that no one can shake it. No matter what they say. No matter how unfair it seems. Let them talk. Let them mock. Let them spread lies, roll their eyes, twist the story. You stay silent, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Because the strongest man in the room is not the one who yells the loudest. It's the one who doesn't need to speak to prove anything. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't even need to be understood. All you need is to protect your mind. Guard it like a temple. Let no one enter unless they bring peace, truth, or wisdom. Let me ask you, how many hours of your life have you lost to anger? How many sleepless nights? How many ruined mornings? How many broken conversations? All because someone else said something or did something, and you couldn't let it go. It always starts the same. A small comment, a cold look, a missed call. But then your thoughts spiral. Why did they do that? What did they mean? How dare they treat me like this? And before you know it, you're replaying the moment 100 times in your head, crafting arguments, imagining comebacks. But you know what you're really doing? You're hurting yourself. They said it once. But you relive it again, and again, and again. You become your own tormentor. So here's the shift: you must train yourself to see reality as it is. Not as your emotions paint it. Words are just sounds. Looks are just movements. What matters is what you make of them. Next time someone insults you, pause. Don't respond right away. Don't react. Just breathe. Step back in your mind. Watch them. And remind yourself, their words do not enter me unless I open the door. It's a discipline. A skill. And it takes practice. But every time you catch yourself before you explode, you're building something incredible inside, a soul that cannot be shaken. Anger is not strength. Rage is not power. Calm is. When you remain calm in chaos, you become untouchable. People don't know what to do with someone who doesn't react. It confuses them. It silences them. And sometimes, it transforms them. This is not a theory. This is a way of life. And it begins the moment you decide, no one owns my mind. No one chooses how I feel. That's mine, and mine alone. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become unshakable. And yes, people will still test you. Life will still throw storms your way. But you'll walk through the fire without burning. You'll become a man who owns himself so completely that others no longer pull your strings. That's Stoicism. That's freedom. That's peace. You will be tested. Not once. Not twice. But every single day. Sometimes by strangers. Sometimes by people you love. The closer they are to your heart, the deeper the wound they can leave. That's the cruel irony. And that's where the real battle is. It's easy to stay calm when a random driver cuts you off on the highway. You curse under your breath, roll your eyes, and forget it an hour later. But what about when your friend betrays you? When your partner says something that cuts deep? When your parents shame you in front of others? That's when it hurts. That's when anger feels justified. And that's when your discipline matters most. You can't fake inner peace. You either have it, or you don't. You either built it in silence, when no one was watching, or you didn't. And when the test comes, you will know. The Stoics understood this. That's why they trained every day, not in theory, but in life. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That applies to anger too. Because often, what keeps us burning is not what happened, but what we tell ourselves about it afterward. You replay the argument in your head. Again. And again. You imagine what you should have said. You build a case. You take a simple wound and rip it open 1,000 times with your own thoughts. The Stoic doesn't do that. He sees the event as it is. Stripped from drama. Deprived of narrative. Someone yelled. That's just a voice. Someone lied. That's their action, not your identity. Someone left. That's a decision, not your value. You are not what others do to you. You are how you choose to respond. And here's something important. Not reacting doesn't mean pretending you're okay. It means choosing not to give away your power. You can feel pain, acknowledge it, breathe through it, and still refuse to be dragged into chaos. Your peace is not denial. It's control. Controlled awareness. You see the insult, but you don't attach to it. You feel the sting, but you don't become the sting. Think of your mind like a clear lake. Someone throws a stone into it, an insult, a provocation, a betrayal. The water ripples. That's normal. But if your lake is deep and steady, those ripples fade quickly. If your lake is shallow and stormy, the stone turns everything to chaos. Depth is what you're building. Stillness is your strength. Now let's get even more honest. Sometimes, it's not even others who provoke us. It's ourselves. Our own expectations. We expected someone to behave differently. We expected recognition, gratitude, loyalty. We expected things to go our way. And when they didn't, we got angry. But the truth is, reality never promised to match your expectations. That's not how the world works. That's why Marcus Aurelius began his day by preparing his mind. He wrote, "Today, I shall meet people who are selfish, ignorant, dishonest, jealous, and rude. But they are like this because they do not know what good and evil truly are." That sounds harsh. But it's not judgment, it's clarity. He was not surprised by people's flaws. He expected them. And because he expected them, he was not shaken by them. How would your life change if you started every morning with that kind of clarity? What if you looked at the world not through the lens of your hopes, but through the lens of your understanding? This person might let me down. This one might lie. That one might forget me. It doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean I stop loving. It just means I'm prepared. And when you're prepared, you don't explode. You observe. You adjust. You stay centered. Now, let's talk about ego. Ego is the invisible thread behind most of your anger. Someone disrespects you, and your ego screams, "How dare they?" Someone cuts you off, and your ego says, "They can't treat me like that." Someone challenges your idea, and the ego rises in defense. But who are you defending? Not your truth, not your peace. You're defending a story about yourself, a fragile identity that needs constant validation. And the more tightly you cling to that image, the more things can offend you. The Stoic lets go of the image. He doesn't need to be seen as right, or powerful, or always respected. He knows what he is, and that's enough. So when someone mocks him, he smiles. When someone lies, he sees it as weakness. When someone shouts, he sees the suffering behind the noise. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to set the record straight with everyone who misunderstands you. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is say nothing. Not because you're passive, but because you're free. Imagine how powerful that makes you. You walk into a room, and someone tries to provoke you. You feel the spark, but you don't act. You breathe. You soften your face. You meet fire with calm. And slowly, their fire dies out. You didn't lose. You led. Because people follow peace. They trust calm. They're drawn to stillness like a sailor to the lighthouse. And here's something deeper. When you stop reacting to everyone else's storms, you create space to feel compassion. Instead of thinking, they're so rude, you begin to wonder, what pain are they carrying that makes them act this way? That shift, from judgment to compassion, is a superpower. It makes you untouchable, not because you're above others, but because you see through them. You stop being the victim. You become the observer. And from that place, nothing controls you anymore. You can't always choose what happens to you. But you can always choose what happens in you. And that choice, made again and again, day after day, builds a kind of peace that nothing can touch. Not gossip. Not betrayal. Not even failure. So when the world pushes you, don't push back. Hold your ground. When someone throws fire at you, don't throw it back. Let it burn itself out. And when they look into your eyes, expecting anger, and they find stillness instead, that's when you've won. That's the power of never being bothered by anyone again. There's a moment when it clicks. Someone says something cruel. The kind of thing that used to ignite you. A low blow. An unfair accusation. A sharp, calculated jab. And you feel the old heat rise up. The familiar tension in your chest. Your pulse quickens. But then, you pause. You breathe. And instead of reacting, you smile. Not because you're weak. Not because you're numb. But because you finally understand, it's not about you. It never was. What they said, what they did, that belongs to them. That's their pain, their confusion, their insecurity. And you don't have to carry it anymore. That's the moment of freedom. Not the moment you win the argument. Not the moment you finally say the perfect comeback. The real freedom comes when you no longer need to. Because anger feeds on attachment. The more tightly you grip your pride, your image, your expectations, the more reasons life finds to hurt you. But when you loosen your grip, when you no longer depend on others to make you feel whole, the insults fall flat. It's like trying to punch smoke. There's nothing to hit. People can only anger you when you believe their opinion matters more than your peace. But ask yourself, how many of these people will even remember this moment in a week, a month, a year? And yet you give them hours of your life, days, sometimes, years. Replaying conversations that should have ended the moment they began. Let it go. Let it all go. Because your mind is a temple. And you decide who gets to walk through its doors. If you don't stand guard, the world will fill it with noise, bitterness, and drama. But if you protect it, truly protect it, then nothing can take your peace. Not even betrayal. Not even heartbreak. Not even injustice. Let me tell you something hard, life isn't fair. People won't always treat you well. Good actions won't always be rewarded. Sometimes, the guilty prosper, and the kind are punished. You'll be misunderstood, overlooked, rejected. But none of that gives you permission to lose yourself. Because the world will always act like the world. You don't rise by demanding fairness. You rise by becoming stronger than circumstance. You rise by choosing how you respond, again and again, no matter what. Now let's talk about something deeper. Something darker. Sometimes, the anger you feel toward others is just a reflection of the anger you carry toward yourself. You're angry because they reminded you of something you hate in yourself. They exposed a wound, a shame, a failure. And instead of facing it, you project it outward. That's why self-awareness matters. Because when you truly know yourself, when you've faced your fears, owned your flaws, forgiven your past, then no one can use those things against you. They can call you a failure. And you'll shrug, because you've already accepted the times you failed. They can mock your appearance. And you'll smile, because you're no longer at war with your reflection. They can try to humiliate you. And it won't work, because you've already seen your darkness, and you didn't run from it. The more whole you become, the less reactive you are. Because only fractured people shatter under pressure. So if you want to stop being bothered by others, don't just train your reactions. Train your self-understanding. Sit with your pain. Get curious about your triggers. Ask, why does this get to me? What part of me is still raw? Then heal it. Because when you heal, you become calm. When you become calm, you become clear. And when you become clear, nothing outside you can shake what's inside you. Let's take it even further. What if you could reach a point where you feel compassion for the person trying to hurt you? Think about that. They lash out. They lie. They try to ruin your name. And instead of hating them, you feel softness. Understanding. You see their wounds beneath their armor. Their confusion behind their pride. Their suffering beneath their noise. That's not weakness. That's power. That's spiritual power. You've risen above the game. You no longer need to fight. You're too high to be pulled back into the mud. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. For he is not permitted to prove himself." And maybe this is your test. Maybe this conflict, this insult, this trial, it's not here to break you. It's here to reveal you. To show you what kind of person you really are. Will you react like everyone else? Will you scream, curse, collapse? Or will you stand tall, breathe deep, and walk away with grace? Because anyone can shout. Anyone can retaliate. But it takes a rare kind of strength to remain still, unmoved, to walk past the fire and leave it burning behind you, untouched. That's mastery. Not of others, of yourself. And that's the goal. Not to control the world, but to control your inner world. Not to stop others from provoking you, but to become the kind of person who cannot be provoked. And I promise you this, once you reach that place, life changes. You stop living like a puppet. You stop reacting to every pull, every insult, every flash of ego. You start living from the inside out, from calm, from clarity, from strength, and suddenly, people respect you more. Not because you forced them to, but because they feel your stillness. They feel your self-respect. And that changes the atmosphere around you. You become a mountain. Immovable, present, silent, but powerful. And that's when you truly become free. It's a strange feeling at first, to walk away from conflict and feel nothing. No fire in your chest. No need to justify yourself. No echo of the insult replaying in your mind. Just silence. Just stillness. Just space. That's when you realize, you're finally free. But here's what most people don't tell you, freedom isn't loud. It doesn't come with applause or validation. No one claps when you stay calm. No one sees the thousands of tiny battles you win inside your own mind. But you know. And that's enough. There's a moment in every confrontation, a single breath, when the choice is made. You can take the bait. Or you can return to yourself. You can step into the chaos. Or you can stay rooted in peace. The world teaches you that walking away is weakness. That silence is surrender. That calm is passive. But it's not. It's the highest form of control. Anyone can lash out. That's easy. What's hard is restraint. What's rare is presence. What's powerful is staying grounded while everyone else spins out. And make no mistake, you will be tempted. Again and again. You'll be misunderstood, blamed, lied to, disrespected. And your ego will whisper, show them. Your pride will say, don't let this slide. But your soul will quietly remind you, you don't need to win this. You just need to remain yourself. That's the only real victory, staying yourself when everything around you tries to pull you out of alignment. And it doesn't mean becoming soft. You can set boundaries with love. You can say no without anger. You can walk away without resentment. You can protect your energy without becoming cold. Because calm is not the absence of power. It's the control of it. Think about a lion. A lion doesn't need to roar all day to prove it's dangerous. It walks slowly. It observes. It chooses when to act, and when to do nothing. That's you now. That's who you're becoming. You don't react to every noise. You don't chase every opinion. You don't fight every battle. You guard your peace like the treasure it is. Because once you've known the weightlessness of a quiet mind, you'll never want to go back. And yet, people will test you. Especially when you stop reacting. They'll poke you harder. Raise their voices. Try to make you snap, because your silence unnerves them. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your strength reminds them of their weakness. But don't let that pull you back in. Not everyone deserves a response. Not every situation needs your presence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not participate. When someone sends you a cruel message, don't reply. When they twist your words, don't defend. When they try to bait you into drama, don't bite. Not because you're scared, but because you have better things to protect: your clarity, your focus, your energy, your time. Remember, your attention is currency. Don't spend it on things that won't matter tomorrow. Let them wonder why you didn't respond. Let them sit in the silence of their own noise. Let them face themselves. You're not responsible for fixing everyone's perception of you. You're not obligated to explain your peace. You don't owe anyone your anger. You owe yourself your stillness. Now let's go deeper. One of the most radical acts you can commit in a loud, angry world is to become a quiet, peaceful presence. Not passive, not a doormat, but deeply rooted, calm in your posture, kind in your words, clear in your boundaries, steady in your spirit. And people feel that. They feel it in the way you look at them, the way you speak, the way you don't flinch. You become a mirror. And in your stillness, they see themselves, clearly, often for the first time. That's why calm people can be so intimidating. Because they can't be controlled. You can't push them into reaction. You can't manipulate them with emotion. They see you, fully. And they choose their next move with intention. Be that person. The one who doesn't escalate. The one who doesn't take things personally. The one who walks away not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because you know your peace is worth more than a temporary win. That doesn't mean you never speak up. That doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you choose your battles with clarity. You know what's worth addressing, and what's better left to silence. You stop living in reactivity. You start living in awareness. And from that place, you make better decisions. You preserve relationships. You de-escalate conflict. You protect your heart. Because in the end, that's the point, not to win every interaction, but to lose as little of yourself as possible in the process. Your peace is your power. And your ability to hold on to it, especially in chaos, that's what makes you unstoppable. So here's what I want you to remember. Every moment is a fork in the road. Someone says something disrespectful. You can react, or you can observe. Someone accuses you unfairly. You can defend, or you can let truth defend itself. Someone tries to pull you into their storm. You can get soaked, or you can stay dry. And each time you choose stillness over fire, presence over pride, peace over being right, you're building something. Inside, quietly, day by day. A self that can no longer be shaken. That's not just emotional maturity. That's spiritual evolution. And it doesn't make you boring. It makes you magnetic. Because the world is full of noise. But peace, real, lived, practiced peace, that's rare. That's unforgettable. That's what people remember, not what you said, but how you stayed grounded while everything else fell apart. You become an anchor. For yourself. And for others. And in a world that's always pulling, demanding, shouting, that is a kind of power that cannot be taken from you. Not by insult. Not by betrayal. Not by anything or anyone. Because it was built inside. Brick by brick. Breath by breath. And now it's yours to keep. The closer they are to you, the harder it hits. It's one thing to ignore a stranger's rude comment. But when it's your partner, your brother, your best friend, the pain doesn't just brush past you. It lands. It twists. And suddenly all that peace you've practiced feels like it's slipping through your fingers. But that's the real test. Because anyone can be calm in isolation. You can sit alone in the mountains, eyes closed, breathing deeply, and feel like a monk. But the world doesn't test you in silence. It tests you in relationships. In conversations. In arguments. In moments when love and pride collide. So how do you stay calm then? You start by remembering, people hurt others when they're in pain. That doesn't excuse their behavior. But it explains it. Anger is often a cry for help in disguise. Aggression is the armor of the wounded. And behind the sharpest words, there's usually a soft place that hasn't healed. If you can see that, even for a second, you change the game. Instead of thinking, why are they doing this to me, you start asking, what's hurting them so much that they're acting like this? That shift doesn't just reduce your anger. It increases your compassion. And from compassion comes power. Because now, instead of adding fuel to the fire, you're removing heat. You're de-escalating. Not by surrendering, but by understanding. Let me be clear, this doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It doesn't mean you excuse manipulation or accept disrespect. What it means is this: you respond with clarity, not reactivity. You speak from your center, not your wounds. Let's say your partner says something cruel during an argument. The instinct is to snap back, to throw something sharper. But what does that lead to? A cycle. More pain, more distance. And in the end, no one wins. Now imagine this instead. You pause. You breathe. You say, I won't talk like this. Not from anger. We'll speak when we're calm. That single act breaks the cycle. Because you're not matching their chaos. You're inviting them into your calm. And if they can't meet you there, then you know what to do. You protect your peace, even from people you love. That's one of the hardest lessons. Just because someone is close to you doesn't mean they get to disrupt your inner world whenever they please. Love doesn't mean unlimited access. Trust doesn't mean tolerating emotional storms without end. You get to say, I love you, but I will not sacrifice my sanity for this conversation. You get to walk out of the room. You get to take a day of silence. You get to protect your space, because your peace is not negotiable. Here's something powerful to remember: being unbothered doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel everything, but you choose your reaction with intention. You can acknowledge pain without exploding. You can admit hurt without weaponizing it. You can express your needs without shaming the other person. That's the mark of true inner strength. Now think about work. Maybe it's your boss who constantly criticizes you in front of others. Maybe it's your colleague who gossips behind your back. Maybe it's a client who treats you like you're replaceable. And inside, you want to scream. You want to quit. You want to call them out in front of everyone. But again, the Stoic path is not to escape all conflict. It's to stand in the fire without letting it consume you. You hold your posture. You stay kind. You speak with precision, not with poison. And more importantly, you remember who you are. Because when people try to diminish you, it's often because they feel small themselves. They don't actually see you clearly, they see their own projections. Their own fears. Their own jealousy. Their own pain. So you don't need to convince them of your worth. You just need to stay grounded in it. That quiet confidence. That's unshakable. That's how you walk into a meeting where everyone's tense, and you stay loose. That's how you receive bad news without collapsing. That's how you remain a steady presence, even when the system around you is chaos. Not because everything is okay, but because you are. Let's go even deeper. Some of the things that bother you now, they're not really about the people around you. They're about your old wounds. Your childhood programming. Your need to prove something you don't need to prove anymore. Maybe your father never saw your worth. And now every bit of criticism feels like that same rejection. Maybe you were bullied. And now every bit of disrespect triggers the memory of being powerless. But you're not that kid anymore. You're not powerless anymore. You get to choose now. You get to say, this version of me doesn't respond the way I used to. And you leave the past behind, not by forgetting it, but by no longer acting from it. That's healing. And healing leads to peace. And peace? Peace changes everything. You walk into a room, and people feel it. Your energy isn't frantic. You're not scanning for threats. You're not trying to prove or defend. You simply are. Present, clear, at home in yourself. And you know what's incredible? That calm becomes contagious. Others start softening around you. They stop shouting. They stop pushing. Because they sense they can't pull you into their storm, and maybe, just maybe, they want to step into your stillness. That's leadership. That's influence. That's how you change rooms without raising your voice. You've seen the other way. You've lived it. You've argued, exploded, regretted, apologized, repeated. And where did it get you? You don't need to live like that anymore. This new way, it's slower, yes. It's quieter. But it's stronger. It's more honest. And it actually works. You get to decide now. You get to say, my peace is not up for grabs. You get to protect it like gold. Not everyone will like that. Some people will call you cold, detached, arrogant. Let them. Their opinion is not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your problem. Your calm is not a threat, it's a boundary. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you look back, and you don't recognize the version of you that used to snap, scream, spiral. You've outgrown it. And what a beautiful thing that is, to outgrow chaos. To rise above reaction. To become untouchable, not in body, but in spirit. That's who you're becoming. And no one, not even the people you love, can take that from you. One day, something strange happens. You're in a situation that used to trigger you. The kind that would have ruined your whole day. Maybe someone cuts you off in traffic. Maybe your friend forgets something important. Maybe a stranger mocks you online. But instead of reacting, you pause. And in that pause, you notice something. There's no fire. No rush of blood to your face. No racing heart. No tightening in your jaw. Just space. Just breath. Just clarity. And then it hits you, you're not the same person anymore. You've grown. Where there used to be buttons, there's just quiet. Where there used to be sharp edges, there's softness. Where there used to be ego, there's understanding. This is the final stage of emotional freedom, not the absence of difficulty, but the arrival of mastery. Not perfection, but power. And not power over others, but power over yourself. You've done the work. You've sat in silence when you could have screamed. You've breathed through pain when you could have blamed. You've chosen clarity over chaos, again and again, until your nervous system rewired itself. Until calm became your natural state. That's what few people understand. Peace is not something you stumble into. It's something you build. It's a discipline. A commitment. A lifestyle. It's what happens when you choose your inner world over outer drama every single day. And now, you carry it with you. Into your work. Into your home. Into every interaction. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't even need to be liked. Your peace is no longer dependent on conditions. It comes from within, and it stays there. That's real power. And the more you live from that place, the more life begins to reflect it back. You start attracting different people, different conversations, different energies. Because chaos recognizes it can't feed on you anymore. Drama finds no grip. Toxicity has no oxygen. You become unshakable, not because you're hard, but because you're deep. Like the ocean. Quiet on the surface, but endless in presence. And sometimes, yes, you'll still feel the old sparks. You'll still get poked. Your ego will still whisper, say something. Show them. Take it back. But you'll smile. You'll breathe. And you'll say, I don't need to go there anymore. Not because you're afraid, but because you're free. You see the game. You've outgrown the need to win it. You've found something better than being right, being at peace. And this peace, it becomes your identity. You're the calm one now. The one people call when things fall apart. The one who listens without judging. The one who doesn't overreact, doesn't spiral, doesn't fuel the fire. And that's not because you're emotionless. It's because you've become a steward of your own energy. You spend it wisely. You protect it fiercely. You've stopped handing your mood to every passing event like it's spare change. And maybe, just maybe, you've inspired others to do the same. Because when one person chooses calm, it gives others permission to follow. When one person refuses to be baited, it shifts the whole dynamic. When one person says, we're not doing this right now, it breaks the pattern. It heals the room. You've become that person. Not perfect, not unfeeling, just grounded, whole, awake. And now, you can forgive the world. You can forgive the people who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You can forgive yourself for how you used to react, for the shouting, the blaming, the overthinking, because now you see it for what it was, survival. You didn't know better. But now you do. And that changes everything. You move differently now. You walk into chaos, and it calms. You enter a heated room, and your silence speaks louder than the shouting. You say less, but everything you say carries weight. Because it's rooted in stillness. In wisdom. In presence. This is the version of you you were always meant to become. And the beauty is, it's just the beginning. Because the calmer you get, the clearer life becomes. You notice more. You appreciate more. You stop rushing. You start listening. You become more intentional with everything, from the words you speak to the spaces you enter. You've built a kind of armor, but not one made of steel. One made of awareness. Soft, but impenetrable. Open, but discerning. Loving, but protected. And you realize, the world didn't change. You did. The people are still the same. The situations are still messy. The noise hasn't stopped. But you're different. You respond with grace. You hold your posture. You meet aggression with groundedness. You don't absorb everything anymore. You let things pass. You let go. Of needing to be understood. Of needing to win. Of needing everyone to approve. Because none of that touches you anymore. And that's the final freedom. To live untouched, not because you don't feel, but because you don't collapse. To walk through life not avoiding fire, but carrying water. To live with a kind of steady dignity that can't be faked. So if you're ever asked, how do you stay so calm? You won't give a complicated answer. You'll smile and say, I just stopped letting the world decide how I feel. And that's it. That's the path. Not easy. Not quick. But worth it. Because in the end, no insult, no betrayal, no criticism, no injustice, none of it is more valuable than your peace. You found the center. And now you live from it. Always.